Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to all my fellow colleagues on the panel. Friends, this is a very distinguished panel, and a couple of members, they are likely to join us soon. There are two presentations in this panel before we go into the discussion on the theme, which is fossil fuel and environment. And as I can see, the composition of the panel, we have a fair representation from both oil and gas as well as coal. And to fill up the gap on the renewables, I'm here. I'll be talking about in between about renewables wherever any intervention is needed. So to begin with, may I request Dr. Hassan Farhangi, who is from Canada, for a short presentation. Would you like to do it from here or? Morning.
How much time? About 10 minutes. If there's time. Oh, all right. We can load it now. You decide. Hey, welcome. Surprise.
That was nothing to do with me. I just hope not. I'm not good this early in the morning.
It's the one call. I have two presentations. 5 minutes.
Hello. Sorry, well, I've got no presentations. Really what I was expecting to be involved. Well, it wasn't.
By the time we're able to it's not quite much time for it. You just have a more comfortable seat.
Yeah, I suppose so.
This way more comfortable here. Are you going to make your presentation now? Yeah. So things are changing.
Friends, by the time this presentation is getting loaded, this theme of this panel discussion is very relevant in today's context, that is fossil fuels and environment. We have come to that stage where the exploitation of the fossil fuels have come to that stage that there are growing environmental concern, and after the recent COP21, everybody has started giving a serious thought on ways and means how to take care of the growing issues. There are three aspects. One is related to exploitation of the resource itself. The second is about its utilization. And the third is how to reduce the consumption or introduce the alternatives. I think a combination of the three that is going to lead to possible solutions to address the environmental concerns. And I hope in our panel discussion, we will be able to effectively address these issues. In fact, yesterday we were having another discussion in this seminar only, where we did talk about that today we are in the transition stage. To think that a particular fuel can replace another, that is rather too early to talk and too ambitious to think. At this moment of time, in the transition, we have to make room for the new entrants. And for countries like India, where the demand and supply gap is there, and the way economy is growing and the demand is increasing, there is room for additions And today, probably substitution at the cost of one fuel by another is not feasible, not desirable. What is required is, based on the end-use applications, renewables or other non-conventional fuels, they can be considered as add-on to suppress the demand of the existing fuels. So I thought that with this opening remarks, I'll set the stage for our fruitful discussion. May I request Dr. Hassan to kindly take the floor?
Yeah, we seem to have a problem with the,
Oh.
with the actual presentation, so I'm going to just
Yeah, then by the time, they are able to address it, maybe you can start.
Sure. So first and foremost, I would concur with what you just mentioned in terms of the need to find a diverse portfolio of energy solutions that could meet the requirements of the economy across this particular region. What I can share with you is the work that has been done in Canada in this particular area. As you may know, Canada is one of the largest, in fact, producers of oil, tar sand, some call it, in North America. The majority of our production is actually moved across the border to US. And in a way, Canada's economy is primarily resource-based. At the same time, the government has, of course, realized the fact that there is a very high percentage of public opinion in Canada against fossil fuel-based generation, to the degree that some of the provinces in Canada have passed legislations to shut down coal-fired power plants. At the same time, I guess the problem that the government is facing is that the same people who are opposing so vocally any generation using fossil fuels, they're not prepared to, in fact, live with an energy system that is not as firm as the one that we have today. A lot of people are not cognizant of the fact that the renewable source of energy are intermittent in nature. Their cost still is quite high compared to fossil fuel, and integrating these sources of energy into the legacy energy systems require a huge amount of investment. Having been cognizant of those issues, the government has started, in fact, working very diligently towards finding solutions, developing technologies, and working, of course, in areas that would allow the country to gradually move towards a higher level of penetration of renewables in the country's grid. My particular group in Canada was funded by the Canadian government for the last 7-8 years. We put together a network of major research-intensive universities in Canada, 8 of which who have developed technologies around the integration of renewable source of energy into our grid, on conservation, on development of energy management systems. And what we've realized is that there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but it requires investment and systemic planning to achieve those objectives.
I must say that you are very lucky in Canada, that you are blessed with lots of natural resources, and among all, hydro has been a mainstream in your power generation capacities. And yesterday also we had some discussion, and where it emerged that the concern for environment in the Canadian society is growing, and there is a great interest in shifting to renewables. So thank you for your initial remarks. Now, to have another player, what I'll request is Dr. Ramesh Jalan. He is resource person and moderator, Climate Change Community Solutions, UNDP, to give his views. I think he has a short presentation, few minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Is it a problem with the computer, your presentation? All down the road. We could all do that.
okay. So,
Big two guys.
we'll wait for his presentation. Meantime, may I request Dr. Philip, he is Professor Emeritus at the University of Oklahoma, to kindly express his view on the theme of the panel discussion, that is fossil fuels and environment.
Okay. Well, I didn't prepare any remarks or anything, but I was just sitting here thinking when you were talking about renewables, and I presume you're talking about wind and solar and things like that. I think one thing that hasn't been discussed here is I think there's some valuable lessons to be learned from what happened in the U.S. when they decided to introduce the addition of ethanol to the gasoline. I mean, this, I guess, is one form of renewable energy. It's not like the wind and the solar and things like that. But I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned there, because once they started doing that, and the farmers in particular realized that they could make a lot of money out of this because they were getting big subsidies from the government. And recently they've been trying to repeal these subsidies, and the farmers, of course, are very much against that. And so once you start doing something like that, there's almost no going back. And I think this is a big problem. And also, of course, there are all the issues related to all the additional land that was being used to grow more corn, land that's not really suitable for growing corn. So then they had to use more fertilizers, and they're using, I can't remember what the statistics are, maybe somebody else knows, how much energy you need to produce a gallon of gasoline or a gallon of ethanol. And I think, it becomes very expensive. And I don't think that it's really been quite the success that people thought it was going to be. And now, of course, with the prices of gasoline having dropped so much in the US and probably other places as well, they still want to keep adding the ethanol, and the farmers are very much against taking the ethanol out of the gasoline. And I think, there are a lot of issues like that related to renewable resources. There's, like in Oklahoma, where they have big wind farms, the companies that are developing these wind farms are getting big subsidies. The idea there was to give them subsidies to get started with this, and now they're trying to repeal the subsidies. But of course, the wind farm companies are very much against this, and this is causing some big political problems as well. So, and I'm sure there are a lot more examples like this related to renewable resources, and a lot of mistakes have been made. And I think as you go forward, these are things that should be considered.
Thank you for your remarks. Now, may I request Mr. S.K. Chaudhary, former chairman, Coal India, to kindly give his views, especially with the coal sector in mind.
Good morning, everybody. Dr. Bhargav and my distinguished colleagues of the DAS, and my friends on the audience. See, all over the world, the coal is the most, I shouldn't use the word abused, fuel. And we are always blamed that the coal is, polluting the whole system. But if we look back in the past, whether it was European countries like UK or US, and all these developed countries, so-called developed countries today, had basic resource for energy from coal. It is when we realized that this emission is so much and the damaging effect on the environment is so much that we got a little involved. And right from 1850, they have made assessment, 1850 to 2011, the global warming figure was 0.7 or 0.8, something like this. And now we are saying that in the next 85 years, that means 2100, we should limit it to another 0.8. That means 1.5 degrees centigrade we can tolerate. And we have seen the impact of the adverse emissions taking the all world over. And as we say, the developed countries have done all this emission and pollution. And we had in our own country, we had this experience in Orissa, Chennai, Indonesia, even US, had very damaging effect of this situation. And if we do not keep the balanced approach towards nature, what nature has given us, we will have earthquakes, we will have floods, we will have devastations. And the forecast is that even if we allow things to go as it is, rivers will dry up. We can imagine a day when the river Rhine in Germany, Thames in London, Volga in Russia, and Ganges, if they dry up, what happens to us? So that seriousness has come. And we, in our part in India, we have also taken the steps. On coal, the basic fact remains that internally, this is the only resource we have got on the fuel for electricity generation. While we are importing nearly about 80%, we are importing. We don't have much oil. Hydropower we had plenty, but we could not take care from beginning. It's very capital intensive, takes long time. And everything is commercially and economic based, and therefore we couldn't develop hydro. We have a lot of sunshine, solar. Now we have awakened and we have taken steps. And in Gurgaon, they have established International Center for Solar Cooperation, and the French premier who came, Hollande, our Prime Minister, they have inaugurated the center there. But it will take time. And the cost of generation per unit was very high. Now I'm told they have got slightly lower, and then it can be sustainable. So cheapest source of feeding the fuel for energy or electricity generation was from coal. Now coming back to coal, the steps that we have taken and the NTPC and the major companies have taken together is for going for supercritical, system of burning fuel in the boilers. Our old boilers are designed for conventional type, and it has to take steps for that. And another thing is this, that right from beginning of the mining of coal, when we mine coal, then transport coal to the point of where we generate, and the combustion itself, the whole system has to be changed. And we have taken now steps that coal has to be washed. Every ton of coal that we produce has to be washed. And we have to take care that we feed the correct quality of coal in the boilers and generate properly. Now coming back to the emission part, my feeling is emission from coal can be minimized, cannot be eliminated. And therefore the bunch of the contribution of the different fuels towards the energy requirement of the country has to be from other sources. And they say they will bring it down to 40%. This contribution of coal will slowly go down. But I don't see any enforceable future in the next 25, 30 years that any likelihood of anything coming like this. Solar is one that if you make it this way, that solar becomes a household gadget, like in rural areas. If you distribute small panels for every small household or a village or a panchayat like that, you can do it. Major solar power stations to set up and run it will take some time. So solar will give us some relief on this. We have to also concentrate on hydro very largely, and we can succeed in this. Coal per se will continue to contribute. And in a country, even in China, or I think US may be lucky because of the gas which they have got now. And China will continue. The biggest emitter of emission in the world today is China. Next is US, then is European Union. We are the fifth. And the forecast from the IMF is that India will be in the first 5 economy of the country. In pollution also perhaps will stay in the very high rank. Therefore we'll take care of this. And personally I feel the technology is the only solution for us. And US has come forward a large way. And technology is the only thing which has our technical friends in the universities and the industry get together and find a way as to how coal can be used as a fuel as far as India is concerned. We have no escape. Chinese study we had a report very nicely. We can convert coal to gas and then use it as a fuel. We can convert coal to liquid and then use it as a fuel. Perhaps that route would be easier. But even that technology we have not brought so far. Now we are trying to get in situation. Chinese have made a good progress. So therefore, my thinking is, and perhaps government is very keen on this, they have to succeed. So now after Paris Agreement having taken place, and the Green Climate Fund of 100 billion almost committed by the rich nations, things appear easier. And now that the US has taken almost the lead in this matter and they are trying to support the whole system. So it will see that by the next 2100, we reach a level in which we can be in the correct pathway for low carbon energy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your good insight on the prospects of coal and saying that coal is going to be the mainstream fuel for coming few decades. Now to have another view on coal, may I request Dr. Andrews, he is General Manager, IEA Clean Coal Center, UK.
Okay, thank you very much. Couple of points. I think there was a great deal of optimism that came out of COP21. But all the things that actually were put forward were qualitative. There's no fixed targets, there's no definitive targets that are going to have to be met over the next 5 to 10 years. I actually disagree with the gentleman at the end regarding the US role at the moment in terms of leading the climate change battle. I think the US is just hanging in there and waiting till they've got a new president. There's nothing with the conflict you've got between the current president and his opposition parties, nothing's going to change over there in the near term. I think the other point to make is, I think this gentleman alluded to it, all of the projections by people like the IEA to whatever levels of reduction in greenhouse gas emissions that are projected to meet the 2-degree scenario or even better than that. At the end of the day, in all of those scenarios, 40% or so of the energy mix is going to be fossil fuels. So any expectation that all fossil fuels, be it oil, gas or coal, are going to disappear in the very near term is fundamentally flawed. But that still means there's a significant driver there for improvements that we can make to the technologies, to the emissions standards that can be achieved by those plants. And they can make incredibly large reductions in CO2 emissions and indeed the other pollutants from coal. Ultimately, though, if you're serious about reducing CO2 emissions down to very, very low levels from coal, you have got to go with carbon capture and storage. And I think the big tragedy at the moment is, besides all the rhetoric about how this is important, what we've been seeing is in Europe, UK particularly, and indeed the USA, the large number of projects that are actually going forward and have now been stopped. No one's leaping to the barricades to say that should be reversed, it's just been accepted. And eventually that sort of lethargy is going to come back and haunt us, I think, in terms of what might have been in terms of reduction in greenhouse gases. Sorry if that's a little bit more negative than everyone else, but I live in the real world. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, may I request Mr. Jalan to, I hope the presentation is ready now.
Yeah, it is. Good morning. I have a short presentation. I represent Solution Exchange at UNDP. We are a knowledge sharing platform of the United Nations country team in India. We have a network of over 35,000 professionals. I handle the climate change community, which was launched in July 2009, the most recent one of the UN. Solution Exchange is now in many countries across the world: Pacific Islands, Philippines, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. This is our community organization. We have a resource group, we have a community of practice, community members and so on. This is the way we work. We have a query service. Members send a query to the community requesting for help. Community offers solutions. And then we prepare a consolidated reply in a time-bound manner. Today, the environment of this particular planet is at stake. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, we need to move away from the paradigm of saying that everything needs to be human-centric. We need to look at a paradigm where we look at even the extinction of the human race if possible, if we are able to coexist on this planet. This is what is happening to the planet today. It's burning, literally burning, ladies and gentlemen, believe me. I've been working on this area of climate change for the last 35 years, and I'm telling you, it's really burning. You know, I'm now almost carrying coal to Newcastle, but here I have an important point to make. These fossil fuels were formed 300 million years ago. Whatever we might say regarding fundamentally flawed policies and principles, how long they will last, ladies and gentlemen, I can bet my life on it, they are not going to last another 300 million years. Take my word for it, and I think everybody here will agree that fossil fuels will not last another 300 million years. It took us 300 million years to make them. We must use them sustainably. We must ensure they last as long as possible. As the Brundtland Commission said, we must give adequate choices to our future generations to live in the same manner that we have been able to live. We should not let them compromise on the choices that they have. I would like to call myself first a fossil fool. We are all fossil fools today. I want lots of it and I want it cheap. Tomorrow, when the OPEC countries decided to cap the output, there's a hue and cry. Prices are to go up. Yeah, they should go up. What is this leading to? Climate change, urban sprawl, air pollution. This is what the fossil fuels are doing. They are making the world full of parched land. Temperature versus fossil fuels. Please read this graph carefully. How global temperature is going up with increase in fossil fuel usage alone. How global warming works. Fossil fuels, coal, oil and natural gas. The carbon dioxide is captured within a blanket, leading to increase in temperatures. Largest contributors to climate change is fossil fuel usage. 57%, ladies and gentlemen. Please remember, fossil fuel is the biggest culprit. Carbon dioxide from fossil fuel combustion, electricity 41%, transport 22%, industry 20%, residential only 6%. We need to be careful about the amount of electricity we use. These are the various types. CO2 from fossil fuel use is 56.6%, ladies and gentlemen. I have just put together certain images to tell you how bad fossil fuels are contributing to the air pollution, to the pollution problem that the country and the world is facing today. Annual greenhouse emission by sectors. Again, you see fossil fuels from retrieval 11.3%, waste disposal 3.4%, transport fuels 14%. All carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. Fossil fuel usage per capita. United States is way high compared to the rest of the world. And as is rightly said, most of the commitments that the United States should have made at COP21 were not made. World fossil fuel resources. Who has the maximum fossil fuel resources? Again, the United States. We are nowhere in the list. Which country consumes the most fossil fuels? China, US, Russia, India. We must not worry that the per capita consumption is low. We are facing the problem of climate change day in and day out. Number of floods are going up, number of droughts are going up, El Nino and what have you. Everything is causing a lot of problems to climate change and the environment. Fossil fuel subsidies in developed countries. This is an important slide. Those who can afford it give a lot of subsidy to their citizens to use fossil fuel. Why? This particular animal is really saying the right thing. You humans have learned to make energy by using fossil fuel, oil, coal, etc. Why did you do that? You're harming the planet beyond repair. If every household, one of these, we could do away with all nuclear and fossil fuel. We need to get back to nature. Wind, solar, geothermal, all need to be used in a holistic manner. How can we end our fossil fuel addiction by 2050? Since the industrial revolution, the world has been looked on fossil fuels, and this fatal addiction has us living on borrowed time, facing ecological and economic ruin by 2050. But ladies and gentlemen, let me point out, it's not too late. If we take the right steps, we can beat our own addiction. We can no longer continue feeding our addiction to fossil fuels as if there is no tomorrow. For there will be no tomorrow, there will be no planet Earth. This was said by Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I would like to end by this poor polar bear. A time will come when he won't even have that ice to step on. Ladies and gentlemen, we really need to look how we are going to reduce the usage of fossil fuels to protect the planet Earth. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you, Mr. Jalan. You have raised some very pertinent questions. And once we are through with first round, then I would request panelists for reactions on various comments made. So to move forward, may I request Mr. Sinha to give his views? I mean, that's on the main theme of the session. You can address them there.
Few social norms I'll talk about in the Indian status. We are using, still 400 million people have no access to electricity. 70% of our Indian population rely on biomass for cooking. Our SDI index is 0.536, and we stand today
Just keep it a little closer. It's already on.
our SDI index is 0.536, and we stand about something like 135 among the 190 nations. So that is our position so far the social status is concerned. Today, energy consumption, we are having 751 kWh per capita against world average of 2900 kWh. GDP in India is something like $1,550 per capita against China, which is about 5,500, and USA is 49,000. Now that is the state of affairs. To improve the quality of life, energy consumption is a must, and we must continue to increase the energy consumption. Now, what are the options before us? We have known source of energy, oil, which is about 760 million. Our present rate of consumption is 114 million, and we are producing only 38 million tons. If we go at the rate of only what we are producing, life on the known reserve will be about 20 years. So also is the condition of gas. Gas has got a reserve of 1330 BCM known reserve so far, and our consumption is 120 BCM. Against that we are producing only 38 million. Now BCM. Now if we go at the rate of what you are using, again 20-25 years we are lost. Now what remains is the coal, fossil fuel, which we have got total reserve as 305 billion, perhaps extractable well about 100 billion tons, and the present rate of production is about 0.6 billion ton, and consumption is out a little over 0.7. Now the point is that this is the only accepted, and this is the only fuel on which we can depend upon if we want to bring up the quality of life, and therefore we have to use this fuel for quite some times so that we can increase the quality of life in our country. The point is that what is the problem with coal? It, for every kWh hour, we throw out about 1.04 of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Lignite, it is 1.28. These are the figures from CEA, and this goes on continuously. If we go on at this rate, the greenhouse gases will tremendously increase with our energy use. Now the point is that how to go about. We have got to take mitigating measures along with tremendous mitigating measures along with the use of coal. Coal is the only fuel which can sustain us for another 40-50 years, by which it is hopeful. We are hopeful that some other sources will come in and take the place of energy. But on this we can indigenously we can only depend upon this. Other sources are not available to us. Coal, now how to go about with the coal? We have to have a coal quality improvement. There are several ways. I think this matter has been discussed extensively in last 2 days in the seminar, and all of you know about it. I'll just mention about little bit here and there, but it is not necessary for me to repeat. However, a great stride has been taken in our country to increase the energy through solar and wind, hydro, nuclear. These are the steps which can keep the greenhouse gases down. It has got zero pollution, all of them. And as you know that 100,000 megawatt is being expected to be added in the solar by 2022. This is a very big step. Hopefully it will come up and the prices will be competitive, which in due course of time take a larger share of the energy needs of the country. But this is also at a trial stage at the moment. There are so many problems which is coming with the these type of supplies, which action is being taken, and perhaps that will sort out the problem in due course of time. One is the cost supply, which could affordable energy provision, and the other, of course, is the problems, technical problems which are coming with these solar, etc. Now, so far the coal is concerned, we have got to improve on combustion, and extensively we have heard in last 2 days as to what are the measures. I am not going to repeat them, but then critical and supercritical, we have also made a program in our country to increase, and the CEA figures which I have seen, it is perhaps by 2030 we are going to add up something like 35 units that will provide about 22,000 megawatt, and total from supercritical and ultracritical it will go to about 48,000, which in 5 years plan we are trying to provide. I am talking about the figure 2017-2022. So this is one of the steps which will surely add up very much. We have heard about this gas, use of gas. Gas has got about 0.5 polluting, you see, and this, if we go on gasification through coal route, this will also enhance greatly the reduce the greenhouse gases and enhance the efficiency. And therefore, we have listened to the different measures one could take for converting coal to gas, and perhaps in due course of time, it will give us quite a relief. So these are the measures which we can continue using the coal, at the same time greatly reduce the effect on the gas. So I am sure that with these measures, coal will continue to help us for another 40-50 years, by which time I hope that other, like what I mentioned, will come and meet our requirement.
Okay, thank you. Now may I request Dr. Dev to give his views.
It's very difficult to follow on some of the points that have been made, but I think if climate change, fear of climate change has done anything, it's woken up the world to the fact that we need to have a different strategy for going forward. And I don't like terms like fossil fuel. It's disrespectful to people that are working in whichever area of improvement in using fossil fuels. They have been doing a good job. I think it's almost like an army of people that need to be motivated and moved in the right direction. And yesterday I gave a presentation, a different way of looking at it. You know, we have a tendency as human beings to look towards the worst outcome at the end of an activity. So a power station is creating harmful gases, and we have to deal with them. And steelworks are creating problems and harmful gases and byproducts that are harmful to people that live in the community. We have to deal with those problems. But I suggested to everyone here that we need to keep calm and just look at the whole process of using fossil fuels, because I think we've agreed in the previous couple of days that in India especially, you have to proceed to use them, but use them in a more cautious way and develop a better way of using them. And they have to be developed in harmony. This is not a war between fossil fuels and renewables, fossil fuels and nuclear. If we're going to create the energy situation that we need in the world, we need to have a harmony, we need to work together. And we need to look at what we're doing now, where we are now and where we want to be, how long it's going to take us to get there, and how we're going to do that working together. And I think it's very good that people are conscious now that, you know, climate change occurs. It's occurred many times in the past, long before human beings walked on the planet. And we believe that we can do things to create some degree of control or remove some of the risks that may exacerbate the situation. In my case, I work in the coal area. I've always worked very close to coal for the whole of my career. And I see we've gone through stages where we've created a lot of significant improvements, and then we've kind of leveled off for a while, and then we've created more improvements and leveled off. And we tend to look towards the countries that have achieved more and learn from them and then implement whatever they've done in our country, which in the case of my country, Australia, certainly the case. We like to lead, but we're also not too proud to follow and learn from what other people have been doing. And I guess my message is that let's look at this little by little in harmony and make sure that we work together. In the coal arena, we have a lot to do, and in India, you have a lot to do, probably far more than in other large user countries that rely on coal at the present time. Improve the situation. I suggested yesterday looking at the whole supply chain. There are big gains to be made all the way along from developing the resource in the first instance to using the fuel at the end of the supply chain, and go back and start to create those improvements. Some of them are very cost effective now. Some of them will require step change in order to implement them. But be conscious of what's required and then work towards a definite goal. And I think in some countries there are good signs where this is progressing quite quickly. In others, we tend to stick with what we've done in the past. And we're very much cost conscious, which is essentially a barrier to achieving what we need to do and where we need to be. So the step change says, let's look at it, let's analyze it, find a way of figuring out what an alternative might cost, not just in a localized situation, but in terms of the whole supply chain from one end to the other. And you may find then that where you're spending a lot of money in a power station, fixing it and keeping it working, changes that you make further back along the supply chain will create significant reduction in those costs. And then you have a justification for making those changes. So my suggestion is let's have a look at the whole picture and figure out together how we can improve things. And I think that if we have that as a strategy, we'll start to make some real progress. If we decide that we're going to fight one another, it will just slow us down. And then we'll have people who need to have energy supplied to them have to wait longer and pay more, and people who already have it become far too cost conscious and risk averse.
Okay, thank you for your views. Now we have Mr. V. Kumar, Advisor Coal from Aditya Birla Group. May I request him to give his views, and with that we'll complete the first round, and then we'll move on to the issues which will be raised, which have been raised in this round.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman, for giving me this opportunity. After such a spirited condemnation of coal by Dr. Jalan, it becomes a little difficult to talk in favor of coal. But then the country has no choice. I mean, 1/3 of our population still doesn't have access to electricity. And as Mr. Sinha gave the details, the standard of living is so low that unless assured and affordable power is made available, things can't improve. Now, how do we do it? Other sources are there, renewables are there. Deep emphasis is being put on this, like might have heard 175 gigawatt of renewables is to be achieved by 2021-22. But then there are problems. Say solar, we have tremendous solar resources. But unless storage facilities are created, what do you do once the sun goes down? We talk about hydel. One is that, okay, it takes time, it's capital intensive, but then the area that it submerges, either you lose the forest or you lose the agricultural land. So what you gain there, you lose in some other way. Nuclear. Now the resistance that the ongoing stations are facing in the country, and the experience that Japan has, the switching over from nuclear to coal back, that puts a question mark on very large scale dependence on nuclear. On the other hand, the country has coal, and among the fossil fuels, as Mr. Sinha explained, coal is the only resource we have. We have therefore no choice but to use it and to depend on it. But then we have got to keep in view that the coal utilization, in fact the entire supply system, starting from production to utilization, have got to be so managed that the ill effects, adverse effects on pollution are mitigated and are reduced to the minimum. It's not that coal sector is unaware of its responsibilities. It's working very hard in this direction. Right from the system of mining, we have brought in continuous miners, which has almost transformed the quality aspects of power grade coal. The planning philosophy is being re-examined. Like in our country, stone bands less than 1 meter thickness was being treated as coal and was being extracted as coal. This system has started changing. We are now taking out even thin coal bands separately. That will naturally improve the quality of coal. But then we do appreciate that the inherent quality of Indian coal is so poor that these will make only marginal differences. So the way out is coal beneficiation, and this aspect, it's not that it was not taken care of. Way back in 97, the mandate came that all power stations which are located 1,000 kilometers away from the pit heads or are located in urban areas or critically polluted areas have to use only minus 34% ash coal. Now that gave a fillip to coal washing, and today the country has 110 million tons of coal washing capacity. Now this cut-off distance of 1,000 kilometers has been reduced to 750. This has increased the coal washing requirement to 361 million tons. This has been taken due note by Coal India. They are already setting up 19 coal washeries, which will have a capacity of 124 million tons, and private sector is going to make its own contribution. So this 361 million ton will achieved going forward. And then the next step, which is likely very soon, is to reduce the cut-off distance to 500 kilometers. So once that happens, practically all the power stations, except those which are located at pit head, will start using washed coal, and that will be of tremendous benefit to the polluting effect of coal on environment. That having been said, let us appreciate that coal resources, as we talk, it's necessary to take a fresh look at it. We talk about 306 billion tons of coal resources. Now let us appreciate that only that coal is available which can be extracted and which can be extracted legally and economically so that consumers can afford it. Now, if we look at our resources from that angle, they are good enough, the extractable reserves are good enough for barely 27 years. But then all is not lost, because almost 5,000 square kilometers of coal-bearing area is still to be explored, and huge resources are in the classification of indicated and inferred resources. And what is necessary is the exploration efforts are intensified so that these indicated and inferred resources are converted into extractable reserves. It's very gratifying that this has been taken due note of, and the exploration program has been quadrupled in the current 5-year plan compared to what it was in last plan. We have a very ambitious program for increasing coal production. It has been in fact accelerated, and by 2019-20 we are aiming at 1,580 million tons, which we do hope will create a situation that at least for non-coking coal, the country will not remain dependent on imports. But then, as has been said, coal has got to become more eco-friendly, and necessary steps are being taken in this direction. We do hope that the $100 billion that has been promised by rich countries will be made available, and deeper research and intense development efforts will be made in the country for working out technologies so that coal utilization becomes more eco-friendly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think, with this first round, couple of things have emerged. That generally there is a view that there is a need to improve the technologies. There is a roadmap for improvements, but that needs to be perhaps made more visible so that, like when we are talking about roadmap for renewables, the roadmap for improved clean technologies like coal and other fossil fuels, that is also available at the same level. Now, may I request the panelists for reaction on the first round? Anybody can, yeah, please.
Very interesting discussion. I think it's no denying that climate change is a reality. And the consequences of not having a long-term plan to address the issue is going to be disastrous for all societies and countries involved. The problem is that given the problems that we see today and in the future, there is not a single solution that could act as the silver bullet to address the issue. Fact of the matter is that we need to have a portfolio of solutions that could help us gradually move towards a future in which we could reduce, in fact, dependency on fossil fuel. But there's no denying that fossil fuel is going to be with us for the foreseeable future, simply due to the fact that in order to make progress in the economy, in society, standard of living, so on and so forth, reliable, sustainable, and firm power is required. Now, when I talk about portfolio of solutions, you see that the spectrum of these solutions could range from finding ways of reducing the pollutants in fossil fuels, all the way to reducing the cost of the renewable source of energy, and the way that we could integrate them within the energy system, all the way to the issue of conservation. In the research that we did back in Canada, it was very interesting to demonstrate the fact that in the existing systems that are prevalent across North America, you have inefficiencies from all the way from 7% to 20% across the system, in generation, in transmission, in distribution of energy systems, so on and so forth. And we could, it is conceivable to try and leverage, capitalize on technologies that could address those inefficiencies and try and bring about less, in fact, reliance on the existing, in fact, technologies that are used for energy generation.
Okay, thank you. Quick response from Dr. Andrews.
Thank you. A couple of points that sort of didn't come up, though I found the rest of the discussion very interesting. I'm not quite sure what this vision of the future, this green vision of the future is. I mean, we're in a world that is seeing increasing urbanization, increasing access to, in those urban environments, to all the things that makes your life feel good. But at the same time, we've got about 1 billion people who've got no access or not consistent access to electricity, particularly in Africa and very much parts of India. And I think that's appalling, and I think it's something that has to be addressed alongside any so-called climate change initiatives. These people are making do with biomass, which is very dangerous to burn, whereas coal or other fuels, and included in that renewables, have a clear role to play, I think. The other point I wanted to make is I live in an urban environment. I have no desire to live in some mythical agrarian environments where we all go back to the land. And what people forget, when people came from that, it was a land of grinding poverty and very short lifetimes. And fuels, fossil fuels in particular, have pulled people away from that. And yes, coal is a high carbon fuel, but it doesn't have to be a high carbon emissions fuel with the technologies that are being developed. And on that point, maybe I was a little harsh on the USA last time, but they have a tremendous program of transformational technology developments that they've established. Not, you know, if you think of the technologies we have, whether it's subcritical, supercritical, they're all steam-based technologies. Fundamentally, they're the same thing. They've got some really exciting ideas that they're trying to take forward. They're not taking them forward in the USA. They're taking them forward in cooperation with a large number of developing and industrializing countries. And I think that's, picking up on David's point, I think, you know, that sort of cooperative approach is really the way we've got to go. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just Mr. Chaudhary, you wanted to say something.
I will only say one thing. I must compliment Mr. Jalan, who has mentioned that the globe is on fire. It is true, it is on fire. But who caused this fire? In every case of fire, you look, who caused this fire? And that is the debate coming from right from the first meeting which was held in Brazil, way back in 1992. I mean, the strong nations, the rich nations, they put the globe on fire. Now, they have the money. They were not coming forward with money. The poor has no voice. Poor has no say. So United Nations came and they have this United Nations frame of climate coordination or control, whatever you say. But the point is, even this Paris Agreement, which is appreciated all over, they say it's legally dynamic binding agreement. But truth is, it's not. Tomorrow, if somebody refuses to pay, you can't do anything. You say all the reductions are agreed that nations will do it, but who will ensure that they will do it? The penal clauses that if I don't do it, what do I lose? Every nation has a very, very, I should say, constrained situation. And we can see in India, as Mr. Sinha was explaining, Mr. Kumar told you, we have no options. As Mr. Kumar mentioned, you see, if you have hydraulic power all over, you will lose land. You will land all kinds of forest will get drowned. And then if there is no rain, there are cases. When there is no rain, no power. So when the sun is not available, we have no power. So you want a consistent system, and as a portfolio of the energy must come. And there is the money required, commitment is required, legally binding agreement is required. So Paris Agreement has to be taken forward. If we stay at Paris and say, well done and we'll be able to manage, I am not quite sure what will happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Just quick response.
Yeah, see, the Paris Agreement is just a starting point. A lot needs to be done, and the INDCs need to become NDCs, and there is a big process that, and then it takes 5 years time before the second phase of the Kyoto Protocol would come into effect. I have 2 points basically. One is when we look at climate change, a lot of climate change is natural. What we at UNDP are looking at anthropogenic climate change that has been caused due to pressure by man, where the CO2 concentration has increased from about 285 in 1850 to more than 400 today. And the second issue is of carbon capture and storage. I mean, these technologies are still in its infancy and at pilot level, and they have a long way to go before they really become, commercially proven. So we need to look at that angle. And a third point, I would like to make regarding tariff of renewables. The latest bid that the government of India has awarded is around 4 rupees per unit, which is comparable to thermal power generation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any views?
I hear a couple of very encouraging signs from comments that have been made, but there's still this almost an obsession to start being concerned about the problems occurring with the user and focusing on that. And I've had a good look at what's happening in terms of advanced technologies in coal combustion and in iron and steel making, and they're very impressive. But they're all forgiving of the fuel or the material that's supplied to them. They compromise. So if the coal that's supplied to a power station is the best that you can do, well, fine. And we make the power station accept that. And I guess my theme amongst all these eminent gentlemen is that I work in the battlefield where we produce and deliver coal. And I think there are much better ways of doing it. And I think we need to start exploring them. But I think for everyone who's involved in this cooperative effort that we're looking at improving the overall energy scene and making it, whatever you want to call it, greener, better, more cost-effective, then we start to really have to go back and look at the very roots and start to make those improvements there. And all I ask is that you start at the beginning and work your way through to the end, rather than starting in the middle and trying to fix things, because a lot of the things that you're perhaps doing won't need to be fixed if you tackle them a different way.
Okay, let me just say one thing quickly. I mean, the title of this talk or session was Fossil Fuels in the Environment, and I think 90% of the discussion has been about climate change. I think we've sort of forgotten the whole thing about the water issue and the other impacts on the environment. And I mean, I realize that climate change is very important, but at the same time, we're totally screwing up the water supplies, and that could be a far bigger issue in the long term than the climate change. I mean, they're all tied together, obviously, but I think it's important not to forget about the water issue, which I'm sure we're not, but I think maybe we should have had a bit more discussion on that. It's probably too late now in this session, but it is important.
Thank you. Mr. Sinha, would you like to say something? No. Okay. In this session, so I think, very interesting points have emerged, ranging from the very basic issue of need for continuing with the traditional sources like coal. Again, talking about a desire to improve the quality, linking it with technology and economics. Ladies and gentlemen, technology and economics are the two sides of the same coin. They drive each other. Today, we have come to that stage that the technological challenges in providing more environmentally benign technology options with the traditional sources, they need to be made more and more economically attractive. That is one thing. Second is, there are challenges. They have to be converted into opportunities. And that's where the future for our coming generation lies. It is true that what we started with, that time has come that the basket of energy sources that has to be expanded, and probably against a universalization for different applications, we may have to prioritize the choice of fuel for certain applications. And that will vary significantly from region to region and country to country. Today, in energy, we have come to a stage that probably we'll have to focus more on country-specific solutions, keeping the overall objective of environment protection in mind. Before we close, I would like to open the floor to some question to the panelists. Please. Introduce yourself and then.
Might request that there be maybe a question directly or directed at Dr. Jalan there. It is yesterday, I think, in this session, it was highlighted that we should not only look at carbon emissions but CO2 equivalent, which in turn means that there are other greenhouse gases that are even more harmful than carbon. And taking from COP21 in Paris, I was very interested to see that there was no mention at all of the impact that, for example, the beef industry has on climate change. There is, I'm told that there is about 1.4 billion head of cattle globally. And
it's a comment or a question?
It's a question to say, and it is said that of that 1.4 billion head of cattle globally, or almost 30% of the methane emissions is not resultant from fossil fuel use, but is caused by others. And also there's been a study that came out of a university in Canada, I'm just not sure which one, which suggests that the global warming and the higher ocean tides are caused by something else, which is the sun, and not due to human activity. And very little is said about adaptation of life. The question is, therefore, are we not perhaps overemphasizing or over-exaggerating the direct cause of fossil fuels on climate change and discounting all these other factors?
Just short answer, please.
Yeah, I've been requested to give a short answer.
First of all, there are many GHG gases, like CO2, N2O, and methane, and chlorofluorocarbons, which are about 11,000 times as potent as CO2. Your second question regarding beef, our sister organization, FAO, the Food Agricultural Organization, has studied in great detail the impact of beef on climate change. First information I must give you that you need 15,000 liters of water to produce 1 kg of beef. Regarding the fermentation from the cattle, the methane emissions, they are significant, and we have been doing work on that, and they contribute to about 17% of the overall
Maybe this can be
emissions from
discussed,
these processes.
after the session.
And the rest of the issues we could discuss during tea time. Thank you.
One small question. For coal is to continue. My question is, how much actually will be the smaller size of the ultra supercritical plant, coal plant, and what will be the cost per megawatt hour of the unit? Is it clear, or should I repeat it actually?
Chaudhary sir.
Ultra supercritical minimum size. Because everybody says we have to increase the efficiency. So what could be the plant size lower? Upper is okay. Then what would be the cost per megawatt hour of that supercritical power plant?
It's about 800 megawatts, that is the minimum.
Just please take the mic. Take the mic, please.
800 megawatts.
This will no doubt require more work. The size has got to be reduced to make it more attractive, even for smaller power stations. But as things stand today, it's about 800 megawatt. That is the minimum size available. That's what I know, but power sector people probably can say better.
I think, sir, the point is very well taken. 800 megawatts is certainly not a doable figure, because we have to optimize the size down to maybe about, ultimately look at 200 to 400 megawatt sizes, because these are the kind of units which are in much larger quantities. Because when the grids are not very big, handling an 800 megawatt size plant which can suddenly go off the grid can create a fair amount of problems. But I think as far as the supercritical goes, it's begun to be available in that range, and the prices have started coming down, and they will come down further because the capacities of production have increased, I think, substantially over the years. In India today itself we have a vast capacity, but yes, we do need to move to probably to advanced supercritical. Ultimately, if we've got to come between about 45% efficiencies to about 50% efficiencies, if we're talking about that range, because that ultimately I think is going to be the solution. 800 certainly will not proliferate the use of advanced supercritical or ultra supercritical.
So 8,000 figure I gave was for ultra supercritical. So far supercritical is concerned, 660 or even 600 is being made available.
But I'm told that it has come down even to maybe 400 level by now, but I think it needs to come down substantially down to 200 megawatt levels, because a lot of captive plants that industry is using and which are not grid connected areas, there the optimum plant size is about 135 to 220, the old sizes, which of course China had discontinued over the last decade. But I think we need to work very strongly on that from the fossil fuel industry side, if we have to survive and move with the overall objective of improving the environment.
Could I just add one word to that? Well, two actually. There is no optimum size as such. It's going to depend on the circumstances in terms of what you need to do, where the plant's located and so on. In China, they've settled on an optimum size of 1,000 megawatts for an ultra supercritical power plant, and as I gave in my presentation 2 days ago, have built about 200 gigawatts of this size of unit, so it works very well. If you can scale down, if you get much below 500 megawatts, you run into design issues related to the turbine and the sweep of the blades if you're going to an ultra supercritical plant. So I don't think you'd find anything below that based on the current designs, that's all.
It will all depend on grid connectivity. China has taken a good decision because they want to bring down the cost of power, but this 1,000 megawatts obviously relate to whatever is grid connected.
Yeah.
China is a regulated society. They will ensure that industry only comes up in certain areas and not maybe in the other areas. We've got to think of other places also. And if, as I said, if you are at remote locations or locations where you need captive plants, then you need to come down to it. Anyway, I think, sir, we've discussed quite a lot on this point, but we shall take note of it and make a recommendation probably that we need to bring down the capacity size of it ultra supercritical. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just I wanted to give you the information that the projection of CEA on ultra super power and ultra super power is about 48,500 megawatt in 2017-22.
It's a dynamic
No,
situation.
that's
is
all right.
changing.
But then that scale has been used mostly because it will go to the state government and government of India, NTPC, etc. They will do. So it will be possible for them to manage the finances. That's what I will.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a very interesting, interactive session, and due to shortage of time, now I am constrained to not take more questions and hand over the session to the organizers. Thank you very much.